Another excerpt in this book, a man mentions how he makes this tea out of a flower called life everlasting flower. Its scientific name, I'm probably going to mess this up, but it is called, I believe it's called Helichrysum stoicus. It is an herb native to South and North Carolina. Its name is derived from the powerful aroma of curry when the leaves or stems are crushed. It is a member of the mint family. A big section on this book when they talk about customs. It discusses food, different types of things they would eat, how they would cook them. It also discusses medicinal herbs and herbs that were used in conjure and hoodoo. One of my favorite stories that's told in here, and it's one of my favorites because it's very creepy. It is a story told by a man named D.C. Kelsey, and he lived at the time when he was interviewed. He lived on 521 West Gaston Street in Frogtown. And he begins his story by saying that they can fix you with most anything. He mentions something that happened to his sister, and he says that she was fixed with candy. He says she ate the candy, and her arm swelled up and turned blue. He says that you could see little animals running up and down her arm. And from my understanding, it seems like these things would be underneath her skin, which is definitely very creepy and disturbing imagery. So his sister got a root doctor named Sherman. And as soon as the root doctor looked at it, he knew what it was. The doctor came on Tuesday, and he gave her a rub to use. And he says to rub this down your arm, and he would come back on Friday. When he came, all of the things had come down from her arm and were into her fingers. So the doctor took a basin with some water, and he put the sister's hand in it. When he did that, he caught all the little things that were in her hand in the bowl of water, and they were running around. And he says that the little animals were puppy dogs. The root doctor asked his sister if she wanted them to go back where they came from, meaning to go back to the person that had put the fix on her. And she said yes. The root doctor said he knew the man that had sent them, and he went to the window with the basin, and he threw the water out. And he threw the water out with the puppy dogs in it in the direction of the man's house. And he said, go. 1 week later, the man that had put the hex on D.C. Kelsey's sister was plowing in the field, and he dropped the plow and fell down. When the people that were out there with him went over to see what was wrong, All the man could say was, "This is my work. This is my work." He says that the man went crazy and died, but his sister got well and was fine. These next two excerpts are going to be about some different plants that are used in medicinal and root work. One of the plants mentioned is called King Physics. It's also known as Prairie Willow. A root doctor that was interviewed said that he could cure any rattlesnake bite in 24 hours with his remedy of King Physic, turpentine, and whiskey. Another root doctor mentions that some of the herbs he uses in his mixtures are golden seal, yellow dust, golden thread, hippo root, pink root, lady slipper, yellow root, blood root, rattlesnake master, black snake root, and John the Conqueror. Another one of the subjects that is covered extensively here in the book is the different words that the people that are interviewed remember that were used by the people that came from Africa. This interviewee mentions that the people that had been born in Africa were different than the people that had been born after being brought over to America. The people born in Africa were called Gola, and the language that they spoke they called Gola talk. They would refer to anyone that was born in Africa, use their first name, and then put Gola in front of it. So Gola Tom, or Gola Sylvie, or Gola Charles. Some of the words that were remembered were Musungo for tobacco, Mulafo for whiskey, Sizur for chicken, Gombe for cow, and Gula for hog. One of my favorite quotes in the book that I feel really sums up hoodoo and conjure and magic is quoted in this book by a woman named Lizzie Jenkins from Sandfly. And she says, everything that happened is caused by conjure and magic. They just don't leave nothing to God. And I like this quote specifically because it is sort of this juxtaposition between such a great juxtaposition between Christianity, whereas those that are doing conjure and hoodoo, they sort of take their fate or things that happen to them or the events in their lives, they sort of take it into their own hands, versus in Christianity, It requires a lot of patience and waiting on the judgment of a higher power to kind of get a backstory on what hoodoo or conjure is. I didn't specifically mention it before, but according to the internet, hoodoo or conjure is traditional African American spirituality that develops from a number of West African spiritual traditions and beliefs. Hoodoo is a mixture of various African religious practices created by enslaved Africans in the New World. And, existing within that are sort of these memories and all these memories that are passed down that survived crossing the Atlantic, that survived slavery. And these next few excerpts are going to be regarding funeral customs. One person interviewed mentions that they beat the drum at the funerals, and it was called the Dead March. It was a slow, long beat. They would beat the drum, then stop, and then beat the drum again. Another person mentions the old drums that the Africans made were made out of animal skin stretched over a hollow log. At their funeral, they would beat the drum and march around the grave in a ring. They would have what was called a setting up that was held before the funeral. At the funeral, they would sing, and they would all put their hands on the person that had died to say goodbye. And it was bad luck not to do that. Another custom was that they did not bury strangers with their kin. They would have to bury them in what they call the stranger's lot. They would have different drums depending on the event that they were having. They would beat the drum that would call the people together for a dance, and it'd be a different beat when they call people for a setting up or a funeral. The kettle drum was a name for one of the type of drums, and another was the bass drum. And that drum stood about 2.5 feet high.